So the Kingdom Hearts fans are still very pissed about me giving Kingdom Hearts a 7 out of 10. Come on, pussy, get out here. We know you're in there. What can I do to calm them down?
RPGs, a style of games known for what exactly? Well, today, let's look at what the hell is an RPG. The term RPG stands for role-playing games, where you take on a character and experience the world through their eyes. RPGs can be dated back to tabletop games like Dungeons & Dragons. To a lot of people, including myself, D&D is considered the first RPG, as you create the character and explore the world as that character. But what about in gaming? I know, it's a bit of a stretch, but in actuality, it would probably be adventure. Now, this doesn't have a lot of elements that modern RPGs had due to limitations, but this did inspire a lot of RPGs and even inspired Zelda. But what a lot of people truly consider the first RPG in gaming is Dragon Quest. Dating back on the NES was actually an attempt to put a D&D styled game on the NES. Yuji Horii wanted to be able to do this, but due to limitations, he created something completely new with the help of the Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama, creating an anime style that would be continued through almost every single RPG. They almost all have spiky-haired anime characters as protagonists. Go on, name one without anime hair. As well as creating most of the tropes and mechanics we see in modern RPGs today. See, there are staples that most RPGs follow that Dragon Quest made. Number one, RPG's greatest feat, the leveling system. As you fight more battles and beat more foes, you get more experience, able to become stronger and more capable of combat, increasing your strength, your power, your defense, taking you from piss baby and fucking with ants to beating up God's ass on a Tuesday. Items follow a similar standard. The more you play the game, the better items you will start to see and start to get, making you more powerful by the end game. And one of the most hated RPG tropes was added: random encounters. And see, in turn-based RPGs, there are normally overhead styles where you can't really show the enemies on top of you. So, about every 5 steps, you randomly run into an enemy and are just thrown into battle. You can't just run away, so a lot of times you think to yourself, why does this matter? Now, in Dragon Quest, I can get over this. This is probably due to hardware limitations, as they couldn't show as many enemies on screen as they would have wanted to. But for modern games and future games, it kind of makes no sense that it's still there. Now, yes, I do see a lot of games going away from this, but there's still so many games that keep these random encounters. The final staple of RPGs, elf shit. Magic, elves, dragons, dwarves, zombies, monsters is normally a staple for all RPGs. Now, yes, some have changed this, but they normally still place with magical, unreal situations that you could never possibly see in the real world. Even the story can be taken back from original Dragon Quest. The world is in peril, and you, yes, you, are the chosen one. You need to go fight dragons, monsters, gods, meet unlikely allies to help defeat the bad guy so you can save the world from impending doom. I guess there's a few that don't do it. There's Persona 5, which just follows the average life of a teenager. There's God. Dragon Quest created the turn-based RPG with the overhead and the random encounters, but in battle, you take turns hitting each other.
It's your turn. Oh, yeah, my bad.
Now, this style has its perks and its downfalls downfalls being that it can get very repetitive as it's the same battle over and over and over. But its plus is that it adds a bit more strategy and it's not as complicated as action RPGs are sometimes. Now, some games have remedied the repetitiveness of this style, like the Mario RPGs have a unique mechanic where you can time certain jumps or counterattacks, making it so you don't take any damage. Making it so if you're under-leveled, you won't just die, it's more under-skilled. But those are just turn-based RPGs. There are two more types of RPGs that we need to talk about. Action RPGs and MMOs. Action RPGs take the same concept of leveling and anime elf shit, but expand the world. While turn-based normally stuck in the 2D plane, action RPGs like to expand existence into the 3-dimensional plane. Action RPGs, normally due to them being 3D, do a lot better job at making you actually feel like you're playing as this character. I'm sorry, walking around with only 8 directions, fighting enemies in turn-based battles does not make me feel like the character. Action RPGs still like to take the fun and quirky cast, but normally you only ever play as one character. Normally in most turn-based RPGs, during the battles you can control every single character. Action RPGs, you normally just control one and the rest are just bots. Some have gone the single person route where you only play as one character. And yes, Souls games are considered RPGs. Their challenge just created their own genre. Luckily, random encounters are gone. All enemies can be seen with the naked eye, so if you don't want to fight anybody, you don't have to. Action RPGs are normally more open world as they want the 3-dimensional movement and freedom. And finally, what are MMO RPGs? As I said, just action RPGs online, but with so much more bullshit. Firstly, MMOs normally have an online component where you can play with other players around the world, finding and helping, fighting, and even helping together to defeat big bosses. As well, MMOs have two major flaws. One, their menus. They're insane and confusing and can be cluttered with so much useless shit. I just want to find my sword. And the second one is MMOs, modern MMOs, normally have stories that can span over time with new DLC, making it hard for new players to get in as they are so much lower than players that have been playing day one or have been grinding out the game that they can't even do any of the stuff, creating a divide between the fanbase. But there is one fatal flaw of all RPGs. Random encounters, confusing and cluttered systems, their huge expansive stories which are very hard to understand. No, it's their biggest virtue and their biggest curse. The leveling system. The leveling system is a staple of RPGs, as what creates growth with your characters and allows you to see progression over time. But it's also a curse with two major problems. Leveling first, it can create a common divide between enemies and players. Enemies can be so much higher level and you're just a pissed baby that you can't even compare it. And this is common in MMOs with higher level players and you being stuck at the ground. You want to fight the higher level players and they keep destroying you, which creates the second biggest problem. The grind. You want to catch up and fight these enemies or fight these higher players, you're gonna have to grind. Fight basic enemies over and over and over so you can eventually beat these bosses or higher level players. And grinding is probably the worst thing about RPGs, as it gets relative to fights and you just do these fights over and over and over and over only to get one level. Now some may say, just get good, but when this boss is one-shotting me and I only do a pixel of health, it kinda seems unfair and seems like I have to grind. Now, trying to remedy this problem, you run into a loop. You can get rid of the leveling system, but now you need to run into the same problem Origami King had, where there's no reason to even do battles as there is no reward. You can get rid of the challenge, but then the game is no fun. You can play on easy mode, but then your pride stops you. You can grind, but then you're bored. Make the bosses easier, but then your pride. See? Then there can be no levels, but then why would you even fight enemies? And now we've created the paradox that plagues almost every single RPG, making it almost impossible to get rid of grinding if you want an XP system, but without it, you create a game where there is no reason to fight enemies. Some have slightly fixed this problem with action RPGs and Mario RPGs being able to dodge enemies' attacks and get out of the way, but that's only a small fix, as sometimes enemy moves are just so insanely unblockable that you have no idea what to do with this, and even with boss battles, you get stupidly overpowered by this one motherfucker that you just keep dying to, that you're like, I guess I have to grind. So now that we've looked at everything, what creates an RPG? 1. Taking on the role of another character. 2. Leveling system that can be a virtue and a curse. 3. Elf and fantastical bullshit. 4. Impending doom on the world. And 4.5, as it's not all RPGs, a ragtag crew taking on this evil.